The stolen ship made its way back to Earth, hoping to receive a hero's welcome. Many of them thought, after so long, a week of wine, women, and song should be their reward. And as they approached the sector, they were all happy to get back. At least the human crew was. The young Pathions that had pack bonded with the humans were much more apprehensive about the outcome, so much so that even discussing what could be happening to them when they got to the surface made them shake with fear. This is another moment to show that humans can be monsters, true, but human duality also allows them to be empathetic and caring. Many times a human would have to wrap their arms around one of these small pantheons to calm them down. Since most of the pantheon survivors are female, they found this comforting a little too much sometimes. After entering the Sol system, they entered the path of Earth's solar rotation. From the moment the ship entered, they began actively scanning, not caring if anyone could pick up their ping. The crew, which included some former Navy personnel, to include the perceived captain of the ship now. They all kept looking for danger at all. The last thing they wanted was to fall into a trap after getting this far. To their shock, they picked up nothing. No fleets, no ships, no fighters, no stations, no satellites, nothing. This made everyone a bit nervous. Those with military experience knew what this actually meant. Immediately, they began broadcasting directly to Earth, begging for a response as they had to wait for a reply as the ship and Earth got closer and closer over time. As the bridge sat silent, a transmission was finally received, but instead of welcoming them home, it was a warning for Xenos to stay away. In response, the military personnel on the ship sent their names, ranks, and identification numbers to confirm their identification and to show they were non-hostile. Then the crew had to wait once again for a response. It was not a long of a wait this time, as Earth was getting closer and closer over time. The response was much more pleasant, as their identifies had truly been confirmed. It would still be another 46 hours before they could even begin their landing sequence, so the crew just asked what happened. The message received came with a video. Once the Pathions had discovered Earth, other species had actually arrived. These new species, numbering 6, began to harvest from the planet. Though the majority seemed to be evaluating the planet, perhaps for colonization, there were another 2 species that have almost like a warlike culture. Unlike the Pantheon, battle is not just a rite of passage, but a way of life. The Kashmirs are a feline-like race that is very lean, but as large as an average human. They seem to like to hunt dangerous game, yet found it, well, near impossible for them to take out the fauna on Earth without serious weapons. All except humans, that is. Using their insanely superior night vision, they have become the new vampires or werewolves of the night. Yet so much worse is they kill for pleasure and seemingly only pleasure. The other species, known as the Yankids, are a reptilian species that you could almost pull out of old science fiction. Large compared to humans, this reptilian species is not really scaly, but smooth. The males are quite broad and prefer to test their mettle against tough opponents, in particular in large-scale combat. The only solace is that the two will stay away from each other. The antithesis of their fighting styles means both sides would lose. There was another small bonus that no human and the crew expected. These 2 species really did not like the Pantheon. The humans on board inquired about this, and it turns out the Pantheon had treated the other 2 species the same way that they had treated humans. The Kashmirs hunted mostly like jungle cats, which makes them easy to beat if you're not anywhere that a Kashmir can ambush you from. With much of the earth covered with foliage or built-up towns and cities. The Kashmirs have an easier time hunting humans on Earth. The issue is their stealth capabilities and the fact that they are willing to use weapons. They are very dangerous. The Yankets are tough, but insist on fighting solo or in very small numbers. They don't come at you in packs. Even with their energy weapon tech, they can be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. One-on-one, though, forget about it. This is before you look at their craft. Very, very tough to kill. Even with modern weapons, you need to hit it several times before any of their VTOL ships go down. After hearing this, the crew told Earth that they have additional information to share about the new enemies, once they got on Earth, of course. Those on the ground were very eager to get them home after that. As Earth slowly came into view, the humans all looked at home as now within reach. Before entering the atmosphere, the captain called for an LZ, any type of coordinates. When he was given a location, he checked against the map and said, try again, ground control. The radio responded, "This is an appropriate landing zone." "Negative, control, find somewhere else." "This is the best landing zone for your purposes. Now head in the directions given to you." The captain, very irate. "Negative, ground control. We didn't just spend 4 years on an alien shithole to steal a ship and come all the way back just to land on Area 51. If we land there, your Halliburton mercenaries will make us all disappear really quick. And I could not imagine what you would do to our mates. Probably sell them some rich deuce noddles that owns you. Now, send another LZ." The outburst surprised the living crap out of everybody, as the captain was usually soft-spoken. Yet a few of the military personnel turned to him and immediately gave him a high five. The radio crackled back, "You will follow your orders given to you by your superior officers." Another human jumped in, and he grabbed the mic right out of the captain's hand. Holding his hand to the captain, he gave a motion, "Just give me a minute, I gotta talk to this guy." "You want to say superior officer? Bullshit. I'm retired because you guys kicked me out because I wouldn't be a slave and bend over and take it. I don't take orders from you, none of us do. Now, show us another LZ, or we're just gonna have to land this bird in the middle of Times Square." "Who is this?" "Answer my question first. Do you have another LZ or not? Identify yourself." "I guess not. We'll see you on the ground." He gives the mic back. The captain looks, "That was almost unnecessary." They both grinned at each other, realizing the implications of that. The ship itself began to descend, and everyone could see their home was now filling up the entire front of the ship. Since the Pathions had used the eclipse as cover, all the humans on board were actually from the US. This meant they knew where they were going back. Aiming for the center of the country, they figured the best place is Kansas City. The constant jokes about feeling like Superman continued well beyond the times where it was funny. On the way down, more and more aircraft got close, too close. Many started targeting the ship, seeing if there was going to be a response, and this would make many of the alarms blare. Yet, the captain ordered that no defensive weapons be used, or turning any offensive weapons. The ship descended slowly to maintain control and to look as non-threatening as possible. Of course, the word hope, written in big, bold letters on the side, definitely helped. As they got within sight of a few helicopters, and fixed-wing aircraft began to circle closer and closer. No matter how many times the captain tried to relay the ship is friendly, the aircraft seemed to be taking an aggressive stance. Seeing this, the man who just told ground control to piss off noticed the way the aircraft were acting. Even though they waved through the portholes at everybody, trying to get their attention, they got absolutely nothing. Eventually, he said, "Okay, fuck this." and got to the upper hatch. Opening it up, the decompression pulled a lot of air out of his lungs and almost pulled him right out of the hatch. Yet he still stood there, standing out of the hatch about waist deep. He looked at the Black Hawk that was slowly descending next to them, so close that he could see the pilot's face, at least the profile of it. Bracing himself so that he could free his hands, he pulled the tan hide away from his torso to expose the remains of a t-shirt underneath. In big words, there was the phrase, "If you're offended, I'll help you pack," with an American flag in the center. The crew chief that was behind his 240 heavy machine gun raised the barrel away and reached for his comms. There, you could see the reaction of the pilot and co-pilot as they looked over to see if he wasn't lying. With a slight grin, the pilot actually turned, couldn't release his hands from the throttle and the stick, but tipped the Black Hawk sideways just a little bit, side to side. The older man simply gave the salute back and headed back inside. Closing the hatch, he got down, looked at the others, and said, "That should get us to the ground in one piece at least." The ship lowered to the ground with considerable grace, making a point to land in an open area so that they are not taken by their own people. Landing almost silently, the area was soon surrounded by everything from curious onlookers to soldiers to emergency crews, all which watched with a lot of interest at this new ship that had just arrived. It would be the first in a while to land on the continent for any reason. The large doors on the side opened up slowly, and the ship revealing over a dozen humans just standing there. They all stood for a moment as they let everybody get a really good look. All of these people inside the ship looked ragged, with most of their clothing worn out or torn off. A few only had tan animal hides to cover themselves, yet they all looked in fairly good shape considering. After a few moments, there was a low voice that called all the humans standing on the ship. It simply said, "Group attention," and everyone snapped to attention. Then, "Present arms." This made everybody outside the ship realize that the crew were in fact human. Lowering their salute, those on the ships relaxed and motioned for other humans to come forward. The non-military, mainly females, walked forward for everyone to see, a few either pregnant or with small children. As the crowd looked on, they began to cheer, and military personnel began to approach as another group joined the crew. Seeing the young Pantheons, everyone was suddenly on edge again. Many of the Pantheons could see the anger in the crowds, along with the screams of anger and the approaching military force, all of a sudden stopping and raising their weapons. An older man in the ship yelled out, "Bring out a PA system!" Everyone paused before he continued, "We need to address the crowd. All of them at the same time." It only took a few moments before they found a bullhorn, which was good enough. Though not the highest officer, this man was clearly the leader of the group. As a young soldier brought him the bullhorn, the man tried to ease tension by looking at the young soldier and asking, "Why so serious?" Which confused the boy at first, but brought a laughter to the crowd. After that, the boy backed away. The man turned the bullhorn on and addressed the crowd. "I'm sure you're all wondering what the fuck is going on. Why would we act like this after coming home? Simply put, we are happy to be back, grateful so much, but we have no intention of becoming lab rats." The crowd was confused as they kind of looked at each other. "Many of us already know what our government and their masters will do if we surrender ourselves to them. We will be taken away for our protection. And if you believe that, I've got oceanfront property in South Dakota to sell you. When that happens, most of us will be tortured for information we don't have. Others motioning to the pantheons next to him, will be dissected, and you'll be told that we contracted some alien bullshit virus. If that were true, we would be dead already. Our new friends and allies will be taken, tortured, and most likely sold off like cattle to the highest bidder. So, to make sure the shadow government can go fuck itself, we want to make a deal. He paused for a second to let that settle. We are willing to surrender the ship along with any and all knowledge of its capabilities as well as how to fly it. In exchange, we just want to take our people and go home. Just leave us the hell alone. Leave us, our family, and our new family alone. He says this as he squeezed a young Pantheon on his side and another one clutching his torso on the other side who was absolutely petrified. He knew this because she was shaking. His words are actually going out live across the entire planet thanks to everybody posting everything that's going on. After a few minutes, a politician walks up the ramp and says, "We will have to negotiate." Before he even finished the sentence, he used the bullhorn again, almost putting it right in her face. "She says we have to negotiate. That is wrong. She wants to play politics. In other words, she wants to screw us over. If we wanted to get played, we could have dealt with the Pantheon counselors, i.e., their version of politicians." At that point, he turned to the politician and asked, "It is a simple yes or no. There's no negotiation, as that just means you're going to simply bring back the status quo where you get all the tech and the general public will get 100 years later. And all of us will end up in the morgue as our bodies are examined. So I ask you again, do you accept the deal? Because we've come to bargain. Yes or no?" He then puts the bullhorn towards the politician's face, which she hesitates and turns away from, yet he insists that he holds the trigger down, holds it close. Since you're Americans on our soil," the man then yanks the bullhorn away from her face and says, "Can I get someone up here who can speak fucking English? Apparently, this is a standard politician, and that can't understand simple concepts. I figured that when I realized what she was." The politician tries to speak, but the crowd is already booing her and is royally pissed at her because of this. That is when a full bird colonel walks up with his staff, to include sergeant majors, and tells the politician in no uncertain terms to fuck off. He then asks to see the bullhorn, turns to the crowd as his staff is motioning for the soldiers to actually stand down. They're making everyone nervous. "I am Colonel Richardson. On behalf of the United States Army, as well as the Kansas National Guard," he motions over to a lieutenant colonel and sergeant major, both of which that are pointing at their shoulder patches. "We accept this deal. These personnel, human and non-human, are not to be assaulted, imprisoned, or molested in any way. In return, for said protections, we accept this ship in its entirety." He then handed the bullhorn back to the man, who held it up high and made sure it was right where everyone could hear it. "Well bargained and done," he said, and turning back to his crew and yelled, "Hey, Captain!" And a human captain walked forward. "I believe you two have a lot to discuss," as he motioned between the colonel and the captain himself. Before the other soldiers approached, the older man looked at the two colonels and asked, "Hey, would it be too much to ask for a military escort? We'd like to go home and see our families." The colonel, obviously grinning just a little bit, but trying to hold his military bearings, said, "That will not be a problem. Just one thing." He held their attention. "We will need to debrief you, and may need your help with the current situations." The man turned to his crew and then back. He said, We have been briefed on the situation, sir, and we are pretty sure we have solutions for your problems. Both of them.